Hello, everybody. Welcome back to We're Talking Movies. As always, I'm Andrew Duvall, and I'm joined by Kate Bonzel. And today, and this is part two of our year-end awards. We've already done our top three favorite movies of the year for each of us. Now we're moving on to some more, shall we say, unique categories. In particular, these are our awards for the most fun at the cinema award, which is the Make You Feel Like a Kid Again award, our most disappointing movie of the year, which we've dubbed the Phantom Menace Award, and our worst movie of the year, which, in response to a recent review that we did, we have since dubbed the Cats 2019 Award. Now, before we get into the negative stuff, let's start with the positive. Cade, what is your winner for the Make You Feel Like a Kid Again Award for 2023?
Honestly, I think that the best experience I had at the cinema this year, the most fun at least, was honestly Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. That movie was definitely a blast to watch. It was such a fun experience. And this is probably one of the best Mission Impossible films ever made. I'd argue it's probably top three. It's up there with Fallout and Ghost Protocol. It was definitely a very fun experience. I mean, my favorite movie of the year is still Oppenheimer, but again, this one just felt very thrilling in that way. And like, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care that it's almost 3 hours long. I don't care how long movies are when I watch them. As long as they're good and as long as they keep me invested, then I'm always there for it. And runtime should be the last thing that audiences should be worried about when they watch a movie. But yeah, this movie definitely delivered. And I was so invested with the characters and the story. I loved what Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise did. The film uses a different narrative compared to different Mission Impossibles, including, since the last two are made by Christopher McQuarrie. What I mean is the movie does a great job exploring the, I guess, threat of AI. The movie makes AI the biggest threat of this movie instead of a nuclear weapon or a pathogen or anything along those lines. And AI hasn't really been fully explored in these movies before. And with this, they do a great job showing how much of a threat it is, which I give a lot of credit to, again, to McQuarrie for what he was able to pull off with that. Also, one of the things I liked about the movie was it had a huge sense of adventure to it. Now, I mean, the missions movies have always had some sort of adventure thrill to it, but this one felt the most like an old school adventure film, especially with, that sequence when they're on the train during that section of the movie and many others. That was definitely a standout. And yeah, that was something that felt special with this one. And I also love how the movie had a resolution. A lot of this is supposed to be part one of the two-part films, and the next one is going to be part two. Usually for me, I don't like it when part ones end on a cliffhanger. I know it's a way to keep you, invested to make you want to go back and see the next one, but this movie had a resolution to it on some degree. They didn't accomplish everything, but they still managed to do something that they were trying to accomplish, which was getting all the keys. So that made it satisfying in that way, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Well, that is definitely a very worthy choice. That definitely is one I considered. Heard for my selection for the Make You Feel Like a Kid Again award for 2023. But in my case, before we get to my official choice, I have two honorable mentions I need to mention. That would be, and weirdly enough, they both come from Paramount, and that would be Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves and Transformers Rise of the Beasts. The reason I call them honorable mentions is because they are both very fun popcorn flicks that really I just thoroughly said he enjoyed. And both came out at times where I really needed just a fun popcorn movie to watch. But neither of them win or my selection for this award this year. No, my selection for the Make You Feel Like a Kid Again award, as I'm opening the envelope and presenting it to the world, is the Super Mario Brothers movie. Oh my gosh, I haven't had a movie make me feel like a kid again this much in a very long time. Now, when I first heard this movie was being made by Illumination Pictures, I was more than a bit apprehensive because that is the studio responsible for flooding the world with minions and ruining everybody's Facebook pages, with your aunt sharing anti vax memes using minions for some reason. But then it came out, and I was a little shaky. Again, I was also still a little apprehensive about some of the voice cast. And then it came out, and I saw it on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and I smiled throughout the whole damn movie because it's exactly what I really wanted from a Super Mario Brothers movie. It's colorful, it's bright, all the characters you know and love are there, and they're well detailed and they're animated well. The voice acting, it ranges from okay. I hate like Chris Pratt as Mario. It wasn't as bad as anybody was expecting it to be. To really, really good. The three that stand out for me are Charlie Day's Luigi, who perfectly delivers what Luigi is, which is a valiant hero, but one who goes into literally every conflict in his life with pants wetting terror. Another one that comes to mind is Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. He plays him as a very fun to watch himbo character who's got more muscles than brain cells, which anybody who knows anything about the Donkey Kong games is exactly what Donkey Kong is. You know, touch the man's bananas, and he will literally hunt you down, and you will die. But he also won't be able to put two and two together and get four. And then what else do I have to say about Jack Black as Bowser? It's just such a perfect voice performance for Bowser because Jack Black manages to perfectly play the three main aspects of Bowser: the ultra grumpy and ill tempered King of the Koopas, the slightly derpy, scatterbrained giant turtle, and the giant Princess Peach simp. There is a reason why Peaches has been like the song of the year for a lot of people. And on top of that, this movie, as I mentioned, one of the reasons I loved Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was that they just filled it with Spider-Man lore. This movie is stuffed full of references and Easter eggs to Mario properties. I saw references to everything from the main platformer games that everybody knows and loves to the racers to even the RPG games, for crying out loud. And again, I just love it. It makes me smile, and I'm really hoping they do a sequel. I fully suspect they will because holy crap, this movie made a lot of money at the box office. And I mean, for crying out loud, its first day, it made 31.4 million its opening day, and that was a Wednesday. Now, mind you, it was the Wednesday during the peak of spring break season, but still, that was a Wednesday. Some movies don't make 31.4 million in their opening weekend. But yeah, no, just I smiled, I laughed, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And that is the whole point of this award. So I had to give it to this one. All right, with all the positivity and and happy stuff out of the way, let's get to what you're all really here for, and that's for us to be negative. And so, from the most fun we had at the cinema, we're moving on to what we've dubbed the Phantom Menace Award, which is what is the most disappointing movie of the year for us. And Cade, what is your winner of the Phantom Menace Award for 2023?
My most disappointing movie of 2023 is probably Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And, spoilers for anyone listening, I know that this is Andrew's least favorite movie of the year, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. So, when it comes to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, so I did like the first two Ant-Man films, but I was disappointed with how this one turned out. Again, I thought the first Ant-Man was really good. I thought Ant-Man and the Wasp was good. So I went into this with, I'd say, high expectations or decent ones at least, but yeah, I wasn't satisfied with what we got. From beginning to end, I thought the plot of this movie was just really jumbled. I think it didn't really know what it wanted to be all that much. It just kind of jumped from plot point to plot point and things just didn't really mesh together well. The movie also has a sort of save the world type narrative to it, and I honestly think that Chris Hemsworth said this perfectly the other day. I think I saw an article with him mentioning this. One of the reasons why Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania didn't do as well is because the movie had a save the world plot rather than a more personal story, which is what the first two Ant-Man movies were. And I think he's really onto something with that. And I know you'll probably want to bring that up later. But yeah, it's called Ant-Man and the Wasp, and yet Hope, aka the Wasp, doesn't really feel like much of a character in this movie. She's in it, but she really just feels more like a side character. Like she could just leave at any point. She doesn't feel as important to the story as Scott did, like in the last movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So that was disappointing to see. Also, I was disappointed with the portrayal of Kang and MODOK, which I know you'll definitely want to get into, but
Oh, just you wait for me to talk about those two things.
I will. So when it comes to Kang and MODOK, I thought Jonathan Majors did a good job in the movie, but I think that at the end during the climax, they kind of did him a little bit dirty. I think he was defeated too easily. Also, when it comes to MODOK, he just felt very unnecessary in my opinion, and his portrayal I was not a fan of. And that kind of gets into one of my biggest problems about the movie. The movie for me was just too goofy. It didn't have enough depth and emotion to it. It was just constantly joking throughout the entire movie, and that's an issue I had with Thor: Love and Thunder. They were just treating everything like a joke rather than taking something seriously. And Yeah, this is honestly an issue that I've had with the MCU for a long time now, and I don't know if you can agree.
Um, I've reached the point where I agree. I lasted a little longer than you, though. For me, like the turning point for me was probably Multiverse of Madness and how underwhelming that was. And then the fact that you followed that up with Thor Love and Thunder, which I thoroughly agree with you. There's actually quite a few similarities between that and Ant-Man 3 for reasons I don't like it. And then you had Black Panther 2, which was, not by no means bad. And it wasn't as good as the first one. It was definitely an uptick. And then you had this. And then what did they follow this up with? The Marvels and everything going on with Jonathan Majors. Yeah, not a good year for the MCU 2023.
Yeah, but why don't we move on to your most disappointing movie of the year? Which one is that?
Well, there was a lot of stuff I was disappointed with this year, but I had to pick one, and I ended up picking Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny as my winner for the Phantom Menace Award. Oh my God, Indiana Jones deserves such a better send off than this. Now, on paper, this movie should have slapped. The final adventure of one of the best and most iconic heroes in movie history, directed by the guy who gave the world Logan and Ford versus Ferrari. How could this fail? Well, it failed in multiple ways. Let's start off with the fact that the plot and pacing of this movie is horrendous. Because the first half of this movie is just one random chase scene leading into another random chase scene, and then it gets really, really slow in the third act, or in the first half of the third act, and then it goes completely out the window in the last half an hour. And it's just like there's no chances to really let the story breathe. And then let's talk about Helena. Oh my God, she's so damn. She presents herself as just such an over the top know it all the whole damn movie, and for some reason, Indiana Jones insists on keeping her with him the whole movie, even though he mentions multiple times he doesn't agree with her motivations, and she betrays him multiple times too. So why the blue hell does he insist on keeping her around? And on top of that, let me know if you agree with me on this. The whole movie gives off a vibe of let's make a movie for the sake of it, as opposed to let's give Indiana Jones a proper send off. Do you get that vibe?
I do, and to be fair, that is also how I kind of felt about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, though. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull definitely had more heart put into it than this. I think you'll agree. And so, why is this my most disappointing movie as opposed to just my worst? Well, because I was actually really, really excited for this movie. Because again, on paper, this movie should have been great. Because I'm a big fan of James Mangold. I think he's a fantastic director. And it's an Indiana Jones movie. I'm always going to be excited for that. But the reason, again, it's not my outright worst is for me, this movie came across more as a wet fart as opposed to Ant-Man 3, which I genuinely wanted my money back. And also this movie did have a couple of things I liked. For example, I actually really liked the opening 25 minutes of this movie. I think that would work as a great like Indiana Jones short film. And I think even though his motivations and his plot are more than a little bit ridiculous, I also thought Mads Mikkelsen did a really good job with the villain. So again, there is parts of this movie I liked, and the fact that I was more anticipating this one than Ant-Man 3, and the fact that there was a couple things I did like about it is why it's my most disappointing, but not my outright worst. But oh God, again, just Indiana Jones deserves such a better send off than this. All right, so now that I've made myself thoroughly sad, let's move on to the Cats 2019 award, which is our equivalent of the worst movie of the year. And Cade, I know what you've selected for this one, and I know you have a lot to say about it. Now, this is one I have not seen myself, but would you like to inform our beloved listeners what your worst movie of 2023 is?
I will, and I'll try to keep this as short as I can because I know how much you want to talk about your least favorite. So I'll just get into it right now. My least favorite movie of the year is Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. So I'm a huge horror fan, and when it comes to the slasher genre, there are slasher films that I do like, and I heard the critical reception of this movie was pretty negative, but I still wanted to give it a try to see what it would be like. And yeah, all I remember was being very let down and disappointed by it. But I get that it had a poor critical reception, but I still wanted to give it a try. And yeah, I think the biggest issue for me was honestly believability. The whole concept of Christopher Robin coming back to the Hundred Acre Woods when he was older and finding Pooh and his friends who had now evolved into these, slasher characters essentially. That for me, I just didn't buy it. That was my biggest problem with the movie, just believability. I just didn't buy that at all. So that was definitely, a con for me. Also, the movie replicates many issues that I have with other slasher films and horror movies in general. It's that there isn't really too much plot to the movie, and the characters in it are constantly making stupid decisions from beginning to end. And that's what really takes me out of a movie. If you're doing that, then it's going to be hard for me to root for you. If you're just constantly doing all these not very reasonable things, then I'm not going to hope for you to survive and get out of this alive. I want Pooh and his friends to catch you. But yeah, again, there just wasn't one character in the movie that I cared about, not even Christopher Robin. I just didn't think he was explored enough, and none of the characters I felt were really explored enough. And that was just an issue that I had. And other than that, my biggest takeaway from this movie is why not just make an original movie? Why put the Winnie the Pooh IP on it? Is it just to get more people to come and see it? Because again, if you had made an original movie, whether it did well or not, I would have more respect for it because at least it's something original. But instead, they just took the Winnie the Pooh IP, slapped it on, and turned that into a horror movie. And yeah, that's my biggest takeaway from it. I want to ask you that. Why not just make an original movie?
I'm not sure either. I get the vibe that it was only made because they could use the characters without having to pay for them because Winnie the Pooh did become a public domain property, I believe, at the either end of 2022 or early 2023. And here's some information that's going to make you really depressed. The gentleman who directed this, I'm not going to pronounce this right, Reese Frake Waterfield, I believe is how it's pronounced, has already confirmed that a sequel is being made and that he is also making horror movies based on Peter Pan and Bambi in the coming years. So there's your 2024 and 2025 winners for this award too.
I actually did know about that. And, regarding the sequel to this movie, my only question is, what would it be about, honestly? But, that's conversation for another time. And yeah, Peter Pan and Bambi, I'll probably still watch those just for the heck of it, just to see how they turn out. But yeah, this is definitely my least favorite movie of the year. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Why don't we talk about your least favorite movie of the year now?
Well, since we've already kind of spoiled this a couple of times, my winner for the Cats 2019 award for worst movie of 2023 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Thank God for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Loki Season 2, because otherwise 2023 probably would have been the year where the MCU truly crashed and burned and never got up. Because after the pile of crap that was Thor Love and Thunder and the incredible disappointment that was Multiverse of Madness, the MCU really needed a good movie to get it back on track. And I decently thought this had a chance of being it. Because, I mean, Ant-Man 1 and 2 were both, they weren't the best movies in the MCU, but they were both very solid, anchored by a very lovable performance by Paul Rudd and Hood as Ant-Man, and some good chemistry with Evelyn Lilly as the Wasp, and a fun supporting cast of, Hank Pym, and in the second movie, Janet Pym and his three cronies, Cassie Lang and all that. But
Well, I will say this though. I think that one of the best things about the movie, Ant-Man 3, is definitely still Paul Rudd. I think he still shines in the role no matter what.
he does, and that leads into my first big issue with this movie. Ant-Man seems to take a big backseat in his own movie. Everything that pushes the vaguely connected plot of this movie along is all because of Janet. But yeah, no, Ant-Man seems to take a backseat in his own movie, and Wasp takes even more of a backseat. Like a good 80% of this movie, I honestly forgot she was even in the damn thing. And again, everybody takes a backseat to Janet, which, okay, I can kind of see where they were coming from. Like, okay, they wanted to fill in the story of when she was in the quantum realm, but they really didn't need to have her take over the entire movie's plot line for that. But that's only one issue I have with this movie. I fully understand that the MCU has a reputation for not so great CGI, especially in its later years, like say around Black Panther is when I think people really started complaining about it. But holy shit, the CGI in this movie was downright atrocious. Like it wasn't even, it looks bad in a couple of places. No, it all looks terrible in this movie. MODOK looks atrocious. The ants look atrocious. Kang's full suit when he's got the force field on. It makes his face look incredibly blurry. The quantum realm as a whole, it all looks straight out of a bad late 90s action flick when they hadn't quite figured out CGI yet. It all looks unfinished. It all looks blurry. He don't look shaky. And I swear to God, there's a couple of times where I think they forgot how to crop the effect right. It's just really, really bad. And then since we'd mentioned MODOK, might as well talk about this. Oh my God, what the hell did they do to MODOK in this movie? Okay, I will admit, MODOK has always looked completely ridiculous. I think you'll agree with me.
I do agree. Yes.
Whether it's in the comics or the various cartoons he's made appearances in, or even his own short lived comedy series on Hulu. At least in that case, it was meant to be comedic. So yeah, MODOK has always looked ridiculous, but he's always been presented with, again, with the exception of that Hulu series, as a legit threat. This ultra intelligent, ultra calculating killing machine of a villain. So why then in this movie did they decide to completely change the character and make him into an annoying comedic relief character who's more of a liability than a threat, and he gets a completely unearned redemption arc at the end of the movie?
Well, and another thing is, regarding to the fact that we find out that he's actually Yellow Jacket from the first Ant-Man.
Which I also hated, by the way. I hated that stupid twist too.
Yeah, I get what you mean. So, in all honesty, I'm not gonna lie. I know that he's never been regarded as one of the most memorable MCU villains, and a lot of people have said he's generic. But in all honesty, I kind of liked Darren Cross in the first Ant-Man. I thought he was a good first villain for Scott. And in this movie, yeah, they just kind of I didn't like what they did with his character in this. And yeah, I agree with the whole redemption arc at the end. It didn't feel as earned.
No, it doesn't feel earned at all. And it's just, oh God, it's so bad. I really did not like this movie, and I wasn't kidding when I damn near asked for my money back and left halfway through the movie. I haven't done that in a very long time. Oh, what else is there? Oh, yeah, let's talk about how they completely neuter Kang in this movie. Now, I get it. Kang was not introduced in this movie. He was introduced in the first season of Loki. Yes, I understand in hindsight, this isn't really a big complaint because we're probably never going to see Kang again. Let's be brutally honest. Now that Jonathan Majors is probably going to prison. But oh my God, did they neuter her Kang in this movie? Now, Jonathan Majors, I think he did a good job playing him. He's presented as highly intelligent, calculating. He's intimidating. He's this intimidating alien dictator. And then he gets defeated relatively simply by literally getting bowled over by a bunch of ants. Really? That's the big bad that we're supposed to be fear in the MCU for the next 6-8 years. This guy's supposed to be on the level of Thanos, who won and killed half of the Earth and half of the Avengers. This is the guy we're supposed to fear. This guy who literally got defeated by a bunch of bad looking CGI ants. This is who we're supposed to fear. Oh God, that genuinely pissed me off. Because again, they were selling Kang so hard as this next Thanos level threat. Oh God, what else is there? Let's see. Cassie Lang in this movie. I honestly thought she was just kind of a straight up brat in this movie. She's disrespectful, she's narcissistic, and she's just kind of mean to her dad. Didn't like her in this movie. And then let's talk about Bill Murray's character. Not the biggest issue in this movie, but I kind of got the feeling of why is he here? He kind of just shows up and disappears and doesn't really provide that much for the movie. It just, again, it kind of just left me asking, why are you here? Again, this wasn't the complete death nail of the MCU, in my opinion, but my God, was this a big nail in the coffin?
I understand what you mean. Well, I'll tell you this. I do know that, at least from what I've heard, we are supposed to still see Kang in the franchise. I think the word is that he's supposed to be recast, but they're still going to keep Kang no matter what. So who knows? Maybe Kang Dynasty and Secret War can provide him with a better portrayal for all we know.
I don't know, man. I've heard that rumor. I've heard the rumor that they're going to shift away from Kang and go to Doctor Doom, which, I mean, as much as I love Doctor Doom as a villain, that's something you got to build up over time.
Yeah.
That would be like pulling Galactus out of thin air and making him the big bad all of a sudden. That's something you got to build up. So, yeah, no, I thoroughly hated this movie. Again, it also does make me sad because there was a time where the MCU was, appointment movie viewing for me. That was one where, I carved out chunks of time to see it opening weekend. And now I've reached the point where I didn't even see the Marvels in theater. I honestly don't even know if I'll see it when it comes to streaming. I'm just that numb to the MCU at this point. And that's sad to me.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Well, that was quite an interesting series of conversations. With that, I've been Andrew. That's been Cade. This has been We're Talking Movies. We'd like to, again, thank you all for subscribing. We're very grateful for it. And we hope you stick with us through 2024. And we're going to keep putting out the good content. And we hope you guys keep watching it. Thank you and Happy New Year, folks.